Once again, in 2 consecutive updates, Payday 3 feels like a completely different game to play than it did during the prior patch. Sweeping changes to Skills 2.0 and seemingly total rebalance of cop health and armor on harder difficulties have changed the meta and made some builds that felt ridiculously overpowered before totally overshadowed by other alternatives. Don't get me wrong, there are still undoubtedly a number of OP skills. Turrets are still scaling endlessly, and throwables remain one-click win buttons, but a few targeted nerfs have undoubtedly made the game on Overkill substantially harder, which is good news in my opinion. This all comes in addition to a paid heist, the almost over-teased shopping spree that sees us hitting a Palatuccio mall that operates a number of drug and weapon smuggling fronts via the dreaded Teddy Moo plushies. I think we've hit peak fatigue on that whole ham-fisted storyline, but I am at least delighted to inform you this is not a warehouse heist, instead taking place in a setting we haven't seen in a Payday game since Stealing Xmas all the way back in 2016. Although I don't think it's close to being the most inspired heist we've seen in this game, it was also the first in a long time that makes me want to explore the world of Payday again. It begs that what's outside the walls of the play space question, and that's mostly a result of its excellent visual presentation. This update has also taken the first steps in addressing those monotonous Wi-Fi circle objectives on the heist from launch. It's only on Touch the Sky for now, but we do have a new objective taken from Shopping Spree to fill the gap. Having spent about 8 hours with the new update, for the first time in a long time I'm sort of lost for words. I have no idea if this is going to be good for the overall health of the game. Undoubtedly, Overkill needed to be harder, but I'm now having less fun with many of my favourite builds. As for the new heist, it's visually striking and has some really decent ideas, but then locks its complete experience behind an asset for some mind-boggling reason, and more often than not boils down to holding F to find and secure loot. A bit of a microcosm of Payday 3's story so far. A good idea, poorly executed. I'm not going to say this is the beginning of the end, because these last few months were meant to be the start of Payday 3's second lease of life, with frequent content updates and actual direction. But in all honesty, I have no idea where they go from here. No new weapons, nothing new to strive for, and a bunch of sideways movements to the skill system. I can see this being the first update that doesn't even move the player count needle on release day. But optimistically, let's start this update coverage by diving into Shopping Spree to work out if it's worth splashing the cash on Payday 3 in the big 2026. I'll start with the core stealth experience first, although it is worth mentioning this heist can have some relatively drastic RNG differences depending on what note you find within Pietro Palatucci's office, no matter whether you take a loud or stealthy approach to the mission. Hiding the core objective store in a safe isn't exactly inspired, but it's a means to an end to deliver the player to one of 3 possible locations. The Nobleman Lounge in its cold storage or food box objective, the Teddy Moo store and the fluffy bastards within there, or the Corvo weapons store. Entrance to each can either be gained by returning door mechanics, such as the classic coloured switch boxes or retina scan panel, or a new passive hack that can be sped up by interacting with these boxes. Or, more interestingly, masking up and entering via the ventilation system. Here you'll need to cut wires, disable fans, and open up the route forward. Calling it a puzzle would be far too generous, bearing in mind you simply need to follow any path that enables you to move forward like it's a simple maze, but it is at least a new idea in the game for the first time since the first World Bank remake. No matter how you make your way through, despite taking place in differing locations, the next core objective is effectively the same either way. Find the clues in a nearby computer and rip and tear through the 3 randomly generated boxes or Teddy Moo variants to locate 4 bags of white powder in each. Alternatively, you just need to enter the cold storage or gun vault and steal everything hidden within. Then drag those bags across the mall to secure the mandatory 12 bags of loot the butcher is after. If that's all you do on this heist, it's exceptionally simple and can be completed in well under 10 minutes, although you can instead head over to the other stores you didn't roll as your core objective and do the same exact thing for the all loot bonus. It's not exactly scintillating, is it? For loud, the core variation is found in how we open the requisite doors and steal the loot. Fundamentally, we're still just opening a bunch of loot containers, it's just this time we need to drill or hack open the door and secure the loot in a classic loot cage, as witnessed before on Rock the Cradle, Diamond District, Houston Breakout, and Delivery Charge. So basically an entirely innovative concept. Whilst the core objectives aren't all that to write home about, I have to admit the mall itself makes for a really solid combat area, supported by some of the best designed spawns in the game. They will back you into rooms and surround you on all sides, leading to some of the most scramble moments I can remember experiencing in Payday 3. I also genuinely enjoyed experiencing combat in a heist that actually has some vibrancy to its colour palette and didn't take place in some moody nighttime setting for the first time in a year. The addition of overkill weapons in the rear of the gun store is a fun concept, and yes, the musket is usable, not only as a powerful melee option, but also with its single shot which can almost one-shot dozers. Also, I haven't been entirely clear about how this heist handles RNG. You see, as standard, you will have access to only 50% of the experience at any time. That's because half the heist, for some genuinely baffling reason, will be locked behind the shutters. So if you spawn on the Teddy Moo side, you're locked away from the gun store and all its associated objectives, and vice versa for Teddy Moo if you spawn on the entrance side of the mall. I should also note, if you do spawn on that side, not only will the loot pool you have access to change, your loud escape will also be altered. Now your main loot location will be this golden car, which you'll need to fill with gas before the escape activates. Of course, this being Payday 3, we don't actually get to see the cool driving getaway, but I can at least appreciate the variation. Sadly though, I can't come up with any decent justification as to why these RNG seeds lock off one side of the heist, especially bearing in mind how much stronger one side's experience is when compared to the other. To be blunt, I like the Corvo gun store heist, but the Teddy Moo heist is a bit shit. If you get the Teddy Moo side, you might as well stay unmasked because the heist is just much easier that way in stealth, meaning it turns into a hold F and bag moving simulator very quickly. Not to mention, the primary way to open it up in Loud is via these painstaking wall panels, and you trade a unique escape for the generic loot cage. On the Corvo side, you're forced to mask up to complete the face scan objective, meaning you're also just as likely to want to interact with the vent entrance, making the loot moving process much more engaging than simply walking bags back and forth and hacking any security that happens to spot you. Then, in Loud, you can roll into a standard thermal drill approach or a new unique plasma cutter entrance, which is the closest thing this heist gets to an actually cool set piece. You know, the moments the franchise was built upon. The disparity is night and day, which means half the time, rather than engage with the RNG mechanic, I just find myself resetting until I get to play the actually fun one. Not only is it nonsensical locking things away like this, but also the heist hasn't been designed around the possibility that one side of the mall is out of bounds. That means it's entirely possible to get soft locked out of certain objectives, or literally be locked away from assets you've placed on the other side of the wall. If you go Loud and roll the lounge objective, for example, you can be locked out of the Teddy Moo store bonus loot as there's no accessible QR code. And if you're on the Corvo side, you'll never be able to turn off cams as the security room is locked by a blue keycard that spawns on a single guard who's always patrolling the rear of Moo and you. This is the kind of oversight you do not go live with, yet here we are. If you're going to experiment by creating a heist that plays entirely differently from run to run, you at least need to consider the ramifications of what that does to the objective flow, and Starbreeze haven't done that here, despite the fact I'm fairly positive this wasn't a time-constrained heist release. Now, I'd be remiss not to mention that it does exist a favour called Grand Opening, which removes these barriers and makes the heist whole again. However, locking this behind a favour is staggering game design, even if they can be purchased from the vendor again. And when all's said and done, the actual 36 core bag experience is so drawn out and lacking focus that I'm not even sure it's that enjoyable, despite fixing the overall issue of splitting everything down the middle. As for the other favours, Fire Sale seems to make it so you don't have to go after a specific loot type, meaning you can ignore a potential objective you don't enjoy, although your choices are still limited without Grand Opening active, and it hasn't been implemented clearly. Limited Edition adds a fine side objective requiring you to locate an RFID tag and ladder to climb up in one of these storage rooms and secure a golden Moo, available at the Starbreeze store for a couple of $100,000 probably. While stealing Pietro is actually a favourite I like, especially in stealth as it forces you to mask up and adds intensity, as moving civs in stealth always does. This is the mob boss we're apparently at war against, although he's just here for a coat bender, meaning he's fair game to take back to our hideout as a hostage. In Loud, you'll need to get him out of the freezers before escorting him back for a Houston-style escape, although keep in mind, this man is immortal and seemingly made of concrete. Overall, the favours are similar to those from Delivery Charge, and simply add more busy work instead of giving your team any choice in their approach, and actually seem to fix certain elements of the RNG, taking away from that being the entire focus of the heist. Don't even get me started on the narrative, by the way. It's trudging and non-committal with references to Treaty again, you know, Concord's Murky Water spin-off, but with absolutely zero payoff or actual intrigue. And Joey can take a hike. Purely comedic marketing doesn't work for a game that's in the mud. We need something actually hard-hitting. So in conclusion, this heist involves a lot of holding F on individual glowing yellow objects. Should I really be so critical of that, given we as Payday players have been holding F on all sorts for years? Maybe not. But when I used to press F, it was to swing around a massive piggy bank above Washington's most impenetrable bank, affix a massive laser drill within a gold-encrusted casino, or even, not so long ago, blow up an entire oil rig. Those were Fs with purpose. Now it's tear into thinly veiled merchandise cows, or quite literally penknife my way into a box of bananas. I'm not saying there isn't room for this sort of objective in a Payday game, or that there isn't at least a little satisfaction derived from ripping apart those godforsaken moves. But after a year of warehouses and low-stakes Payday, Shopping Spree finally takes us to a new, exciting and visually appealing setting, undoubtedly the most praiseworthy facet of this heist, and tells us to go back to doing the exact same monotonous task we have been for months, if not years now. Find the right thing to click on, turn into a loot bag, and then chuck into some form of apparently secure location, be that a cage or a vent. There's no crescendo, no impressive set piece, and we're not even tearing this place apart a la Mall Crasher. The setting would be wasted in my opinion if it weren't for the RNG elements that actually work, especially in stealth and around the gun store. It's not that it's a bad or uninspired heist, it's simply not deserving of your money and wastes its setting. You have to ask yourself, what fresh experiences is it offering? What can you do after spending however many dollars it costs that you couldn't do with that cash in your pocket? My feeling is that any Payday heist you charge money for needs to provide something you won't necessarily get the chance to experience otherwise. Last year, Party Powder totally failed to do so given its limited design scope, and then Delivery Charge managed to offer something unique, only to be held back by its undeservedly inflated price tag and replayability cannibalizing favor design. Now we have Shopping Spree, a heist that's clearly the product of that greater Payday 3 investment in recent months, yet still devoid of original ideas and lacking testing and polish. Visual presentation can't replace creativity, and although there are a few sparks here with this new plasma cutter objective in particular, I can't in good faith recommend you spend money on this product. I suspect Payday 3's entire monetization system will go through some fairly drastic changes this year, which can't come soon enough when this is what the old paid DLC model produces almost 2.5 years into the game's lifespan. Enough on the heist though, there's still a lot to this update that won't leave your pockets feeling any lighter. For instance, a number of skills that have been drastically changed as laid out in the blog post last November, ironically before Skills 2.0 actually released. Highlights include the total removal of human resources, which was admittedly overpowered, in favour of a way to no longer blow up civs on a grenade build, a massive nerf to the endless resource generation of the pistol skill Bounty Hunter, and buffs to the functionality of SM Genius for SMGs and Berserker for shotguns. Skills like Bastion have also been changed in terms of point cost, meaning it's much harder than it used to be to totally negate cloakers and tasers as we did before. These changes are a bit hit or miss in my opinion, with Sentry and Marksman rifle skills still being incredibly powerful. I worry it's just going to limit the overall build variety we saw on launch. At least dozers are now stunnable via the ECM electrical interference skill, meaning ECMs have some use within Skills 2.0 at least. Otherwise, it feels like a fair bit has gone against the player across this patch. Cops are much tankier on harder difficulties, especially bulldozers, and a few of our core strategies have been impacted. The Red Fox, for instance, feels weaker, especially when it comes to deleting groups with its Graze effect. I don't have complete enough patch notes to tell you what exactly changed, but like most weapon classes now, it feels lower impact than it once did. Most impactfully though, they've fixed every armor type receiving the 2 seconds of passive immunity that's meant to be exclusive for the mercenary 4-plate frame. Fair warning, you will notice this. Single plate setups, especially anything reliant on dodge, feel much easier to die with now, and the power of the 4-plate passive is going to push more players towards those heavier armor frames. Ammo pickup rates have also been nerfed across the board, outside of SMGs which are already struggling in terms of economy. This will hamper a number of weapons and I suspect push players back towards shotguns. From my 8 or so hours of testing, they are almost certainly back to being top dogs in terms of overall versatility, good matchups versus dozers, less skill and aim reliance than DMRs, and a still consistent ammo pickup rate that makes them much higher value again, especially now Berserker is fixed and can be used to tank up that bit more. We finally have more loadouts though, so it might be possible to test out a few more builds before settling on the definitive meta after this patch. Finally, I have to mention the notable steps forward they're taking with the removal of Wi-Fi circles on Touch the Sky, in favour of a timed hack that can be sped up by locating these war boxes we've seen previously on Syntax Error. It's a really solid solution that hopefully heralds a wider refresh of the base game's heist, which undoubtedly needs some love to maximise their replayability and remove the tedium that comes with the circles. Ironically, I think Touch the Sky was one of the least hampered heists by the existence of circles, as they're often out the way before the first assault wave even hits, but this is undoubtedly going to smooth out and remove an element of uncontrollable difficulty for stealth playthroughs, whilst also getting rid of a stigmatised mechanic from one of the few universally well-liked heists in the game. That being said, I still can't shake the feeling that Payday 3 is heading into 2026 completely rudderless once more. This update changes the core gameplay loop a fair bit, but I haven't yet worked out if that's even for the better. You will find yourself going down more, which is probably a good thing when Skills 2.0 made the game so easy initially, but it seldom feels like it's your fault, and I now found myself wasting even more skill points for things like Beast of Burden and Bastion, meaning the actually unique and interesting parts of each build I run are dwindling. Finally, on the new shopping spree heist, whilst they did a great job in its presentation and have undoubtedly listened to feedback on RNG, the overall experience is inconsistent and held back by its baffling split design, with some seeds offering fun and others tedium. It's slow and laborious at times and doesn't hold my attention at all. For the first time in a long time, I'm finding the track grating on me as the heist goes on. I don't necessarily think this is an indictment of the music itself, just the dissonance between this upbeat, high-tempo song and this plodding, objective gameplay that sees all the most interesting moments sidelined or literally taken off screen, as with the car escape. Polish is never to be expected on Payday Heist these days, yet this one features glaring issues despite its attention to detail. Staying unmasked makes the heist so much simpler in stealth, meaning if you don't roll the gun store objective, it's a really tough call to ever consider masking up, and even interfacing with half the heist. Also, watch out for the lead guard, he's a Michael Jackson impersonator by all accounts. A lot of this heist is salvageable, but I'm not buying into the idea that release now, fix later is sustainable for a game with Payday 3's reputation. This is a flawed product I can't recommend purchasing as it stands, and I hope they've sold enough Teddy Moos to cover for the lost revenue that's almost guaranteed when you launch a DLC in this state. PS5 players can rejoice though, as their store release has been botched. That means you can still play the heist with friends who own it, but you'll be spared from spending your own cash until the 15th, so you have plenty of time to make an actually informed decision. To be transparent with you, I was excited to see what could happen to Payday 3 under new management. I genuinely got a kick out of playing Skills 2.0 and hope they could follow that up into the new year. But the truth of the current situation is out in the light of day at this point. Enfranchised players have turned on the game, casual fans still lack a good reason to keep switching it on, and just about everyone else has forgotten about it. With updates like today's, I find myself wishing I could do likewise. The oxygen has left the room, and passion seems to have ebbed away from both outside and within. It'd take a miracle for them to turn things around from here, something I find less and less likely by the day. The Teddy Moorification of Payday might be their only way forward at this point, and I'm not sure how much longer I'll be able to stick that out. Regardless, Happy New Year. I have no idea what's in store for Payday 3 in 2026, but I hope it's more than this. Take care, I'll see you all very soon. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.